So just to think that this person is crying so much that the entire room is filled with tears. Do you know how many tears you have to cry? Hey everybody, so welcome to my channel. If you're new here, hello! And if you're coming back, thank you! And it's been a while since I've done a sit-down video that I've done. I have stuff that I still have to do but I haven't done, you know what I'm saying? I wanted to do this video, I'm just gonna try and do stuff. Like, I feel like I always give an explanation, I always give a preface. Like, all of my videos follow preface. It's like appetizer that you didn't order, and then it's like food that maybe you might like, you might not like, and then, you know, there's no dessert, sorry. But yeah, so I'm thinking I'm just gonna try and go for it, just try and do my thing. Yeah, so this We've Been Learn point is I want to talk about like different Japanese songs and stuff that I like, and I wanted to break down the lyrics, but I don't think that I can go through all the lyrics just because of copyright stuff. I'm not exactly sure. Probably not doing my research. Definitely not doing probably the research level that I should be doing. But yeah, I honestly genuinely think that the fastest way for you to learn, or the way that you would absorb things the most would be not for me to just tell you like this means this, this means this. I can give you explanations which might help you, like, might help them stick to you better. But I think that me, you know, looking up every single word like how I did when I studied, because when I was looking up lyrics when I was studying Japanese, which I still do, I would look up every single word. But if I do that for you, it takes the work out of it, and I don't think it makes it as productive. So what I'm going to do is that I'm going to take the phrases that I really like, or phrases that I think that are interesting, that I'm like, okay, so this is what this says, but maybe this isn't used that often, or like this is used a different way than other things. So yeah, I'm just going to take songs that I really like, and I'm going to share those with you guys, and you know, I guess I'll leave the link down below, so maybe you can like hear some new songs that you haven't heard, and then yeah, like maybe learn some new phrases. So let's just get right to it. So today I want to do, sorry, the band's name is Bump of Chicken. Yes. The song is called Laugh Maker. So it's like a laugh maker. And I think this song is hilarious. Like, it legitimately, every time I hear it, this song is funny. The lyrics are hilarious. Essentially, I won't go through like each paragraph like and break down exactly what happens down individually. I will go over some things in different like verses or paragraphs. But essentially the story is that like there's someone in the room, there's this guy in his room, and he's just like crying, and then he hears a knock on the door, and then he's like, who the heck is this? And then it turns out it's this guy, the laugh maker. So the laugh maker's goal is apparently just to make you laugh. So people who are sad, or people who are like, you know, upsetty spaghetti, well, I don't know about the upsetty spaghetti, but you know, if you're like in a not happy mood, I guess, his goal, the laugh maker's goal, is to bring you a smile. Like, and so just the way that he goes about it in the song, I think is so funny. I think the concept is hilarious. I think it's genius. I think the lyrics are just like, it's just so funny. Just thinking about it, I'm like, he's brought me a smile. So I think he's doing a good job. I'm gonna go over some of the different things that I think were really interesting. So number one is in the first verse, and he goes, Mo nanda yo dochira sama. And I think that's interesting because, so he has mo nandayo, right? So nandayo is like, mo nandayo, it's like, because nandayo, right? That's like, what is it called? Plain form. So obviously he's not using any kind of honorifics there, but then he goes like, dochira sama. So dochira sama is like a super fancy way, like a super kind of like teine, right, polite way of saying like, who are you? So I just think the juxtaposition of the two is really interesting. And so then we'll just skip then to the next paragraph, and then this one is where, you know, he's telling the laugh maker. I was like, I'm not gonna break it down by paragraph. Here I go, break it down by paragraph. But then in the next, not paragraph, but verse, he's like, oh, just like go away. Like, he's like, oh, like if you're there, like I can't cry. And so what he says, laugh maker. 冗談じゃないそんなもん読んだ覚えはない構わず消えてくれそこにいられたら泣けないだろう So it's just interesting because he says そこにいられたら So like iru, it's like the verb iru, to be, right? But you don't generally use iru in the passive. So I think it's interesting how he used it like that. I tried to look it up, and I don't think that it's a common way of using it, so I would not use it. Like if you're, you know, learning Japanese, you come across this and you try and use it and you're like, what? Yeah, like I just think it's really interesting how he just played with words. Like, yeah, that's cool. But yeah, I would not recommend using that in the passive tense, but if you see it, then that's, you know, if you see it, then that's what it would be. Okay, so this next one, I just think because he starts off, so the next one is like, you know, he's in the room and he goes like, 大洪水の部屋にノックの音が飛び込んだ. Oh, fudge! So I forgot in the first verse, I also thought it was interesting because he goes like, "涙で濡れた部屋にノックの音が転がった." So he wrote 音が転がった. So 転がる is like 転がる is like to like roll. So like the sound rolled, but that's not like a common phrase at all. That's like not something that you say. I don't know what the literary term for that would be, but he's just painting pictures with words is what he's doing, you know, painting pictures, that PPWW, that PPWW. Okay, so that PPWW is what he's doing. Okay, so yeah, like you don't generally hear, like if you're watching a drama, I don't think that it's gonna be like ton 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 なんかノックの音が転がったんだけどちょっと誰か見てくれる? Like it's not gonna happen. Yeah, so it's just, I think it's interesting how he used that. But then in the third verse, then he brought it back, right? But he brought a different form. So he goes like, noku no oto ga tobikonda. So tobikonda is like to fly in. And it's like, so again, like the sound like flew in. So again, this is just like, he's that PPWW. Like he's just painting pictures with words. That's all he's doing. Awesome though, I think it's so cool. And then the way that he started off is like Daikozui no heya ni. So like in the room, that's like, it's like flood, but the word he said was daikozui. So kozui is flood, daikozui is like giant flood, but giant flood, like daikozui is, I would say, almost exclusively used for, maybe it's used in the news, I'm not sure, but it's almost exclusively used. Like when you look up daikozui, like on Wikipedia, it'll show like Noah's flood, like it's like that level flood. So just to think that this person is crying so much that the entire room is filled with tears. Do you know how many tears you have to cry? Like amazing. And then in this verse he also uses so then this guy, he tells the guy who is crying, he tells the laugh maker again, he's like, go away, you know. And then the laugh maker, he's like, what did he say? そんな言葉を言われてのは生まれてこの方初めてだ. So he goes, 非常に悲しくなってきた. So 悲しい, usually you would see this kanji. But here he uses a different kanji, which this kanji is also used for like, it's also used for kanashi. So like kanashi, I don't know exactly what the tonal thing, whatever, go ask Dogen. But yeah, so whatever the word is, or whatever the tone is, it's the same as the regular kanashi, but the kanji is different. And this kanji is also used in like awaremi, which is like pity, like kind of like sympathy. So it kind of has like a different nuance when you use that kanji. But what was interesting is that, hey everybody, what it do? It's me with a good mic. Sorry, so I just wanted to insert really quickly here. When I took a look at the lyrics again, I noticed that the area that we are talking about right now, this instant that we will talk about, like just in a couple of moments, is in quotes, and the only other area that is in quotes is when the laugh maker introduces himself. Therefore, I deduced that the laugh maker is the one talking about himself there, which I'll go into details about it further, but I left the whole bit in so you guys can hear like my thought process going into like when I initially analyzed it. And also I want you guys to understand, yeah, it doesn't matter how great your Japanese is or whatever language it is you're studying. When you're studying things like music and or arts, things that are more abstract, it's not that straightforward. So yeah, I hope that's kind of encouraging. Anyway, I'll talk to you again very soon. So the person here, because it's in quotes, right? So he says, he's like, oh, that guy's like still there, but I, told him to go away. And then he's like, oh, そんな言葉を言われたのは生まれてこの方初めてだ. So this part, I'm not exactly sure who's talking, again, because Japanese doesn't necessarily make it 100% clear who's talking like all the time. He goes, この方. So この方, like it would sound like someone is narrating that this person, is like, oh, この方. So this person is talking about この方. And so then this person is narrating what the laugh maker is experiencing, like that sadness, right? And then he uses like the pity, which to me that made sense. But then in the next verse, the guy, he goes like, so then again it goes back to the protagonist of the person who's like crying, and then he's like, there's nothing that can be done if you was crying, because I'm here in a flood of my tears, So I just think it's really interesting how, I don't know who's talking at that point. So if you know who's talking, if you have, a better idea than I do, please enlighten me in the comment section. But I just think it's really interesting, the different use of kanashi, and like, I don't know exactly, or it could be, another possibility is that it could be the laugh maker saying that at that point. And at this point, it's not even that ridiculous for him to be like, because he used the word kata. So kata is usually like a respectful term when you use like, because you know how like you would say like hito, but another way of saying hito is kata. which hito is obviously person. But yeah, another way of the polite way of saying hito is kata, but then he goes like sono kata, so that's why I thought it was weird for him to say of himself like sono kata, because that's him. But the situation is already weird enough because you have this laugh maker who's trying to get into your room to make you laugh. So it could be possible. I have no idea. I just think that's really interesting. So just to think that this person is crying so much that the entire room is filled with tears. Do you know how many tears you have to cry? Then in the next one, right, he was like anta ga naite cha shouga nai. So he goes naite cha shouga nai. So this is interesting because that cha, like that naite cha, yeah, so it sounds kind of just like a stylized, for me it sounds like naite wa shouga nai, but I don't think that's exactly how it is. But it's just like one common phrase, for example, that is used a lot when like naitatte shouga nai. It's just the same way of saying, I don't know how to express it, I'm sorry. I don't know how to accurately express it, but it's just like, oh, like there's no, you know, even if you cry, that's not gonna solve anything. So, you know, and then whatever else would be after that or before that. But yeah, so then cha, it just sounds like a different way of expressing kind of like that same feeling. Okay, so looking this up again, I found an article where they use naite cha wakaranai, so I'm gonna put that up on the screen so you guys can see. And yeah, this article came out after I filmed the video, but that is very much a thing. So yeah, I think it's just kind of like a stylized way. You don't have to look too deep into that. I mean, I guess if you do and you find out and you want to let me know or you want to let the other people know, then you do that, but it's not like a make or break kind of thing. Like this is not gonna make or break your Japanese experience, or at least I don't think it should. We're gonna skip on. So now they're just both here. Remember, this guy's in his room full of tears. You know, they're just both crying, and now they're painting the scene where they're like both like, so there's like a door, and then like the laugh maker's like here, so this is his face and it's facing that way, and then there's the door, and then this guy, the protagonist or whatever, the main crier, is in here and he's facing that way and he's crying. They're both with their backs against the door, and they're like holding their knees, and they're both just like crying. So then, like, you know, at this point, like the protagonist is like, bro, I'm just tired, okay, you know, like, because he doesn't want to let the laugh maker in, right? Like, tired, I could hear like both our voices, we're just here crying, we're tired from how much we're crying and stuff. Then the laugh maker, he ima demo shikkari ore wo warawaseru tsumori kara fume ga sore dake ga ikigai nanda warawasenai to kaerenai. Oh, so you still trying to make me laugh though. And then the laugh maker, he's like, he said, sore dake ga ikigai nanda. So ikigai is like an interesting word, I think, because it doesn't have necessarily, I think, a direct translation. It's kind of just like meaning to, it gives this thing, whatever it is that comes before that, gives meaning, purpose to your life. So for example, he said, sore dake ga ikigai nanda. Sore dake ga, what is sore? So that's like what this guy was talking about. So he's like, oh, you're still trying to make me laugh? And then the laugh maker's like, yeah, like that's like my purpose in life, is to make people laugh. And then he's like, but he said sore dake ga, right? So he's like, that's my only purpose in life, pretty much. So like that's the only thing that I'm living for. It's just to make people laugh. So that's the laugh maker's that's his whole bit, legit, that's his whole bit, that's his whole life. He just makes people laugh. So I'm like, okay, cool. I think that's an interesting, like, I just think that's an interesting word. You see it not too often, but when you do now, hopefully you know. And then this is just another verse that I thought was hilarious. I just think it's so funny. The idea, I still think the concept is so funny. So at this point, the person who, you know, had been crying, the original crier, was in his room, and he's like, okay, I think I'm gonna let you in, laugh maker. And then at the point where he's gonna let the laugh maker in, then he goes, ima dewa anta o heya ni irite mo ito omoeta ga, he goes, komatta koto ni doa ga akanai, tamatta namida no sui yatsu da. So komatta koto ni doa ga akanai. So it's like, oh, like, dang, I'm stuck. It doesn't literally say, like, the little translation is not like, oh dang, I'm stuck. But I would, you know, just like, to kind of translate it very briefly, be like, oh no, like, I'm stuck. He's not like actually stuck. It's like komatteru, like, oh yeah, he's like in trouble. Cause like the pressure, the water pressure from all the tears up against the doors is keeping him from opening the door and getting to the laugh maker. Like, my mind exploded when I figured out that, oh man, I just think that's so funny. I legit think that's one of the funniest things I've ever heard, I think maybe in my entire life. God bless you Fujiwara-san, you great. That was so great. But yeah, so then he goes, you know, now he's like, oh, you know, I trusted you, and then at the moment that I trusted you, then you betrayed me. I guess like towards the end, just the last couple of things that he says, which is, I guess, is not too difficult, it's pretty easy. But yeah, then he goes, so the laugh maker comes in, let me tell you, the laugh maker comes in with a friggin' iron pipe. He breaks the guy's window with an iron pipe. 俺につけ、what is it? 小さな鏡を取り出して、俺に突きつけてこう言った。So it's like, 突きつけるis like to kind of like do like that. So if I have like a notebook and then I'm like 突きつける to your face, like that's what he's doing. So then the laugh maker comes, here I am, and then the laugh maker 突きつけru's, you know, that mirror that he's holding, and he holds it to his face. He holds it to whatever, the person who's crying face, and then the guy, he goes like akireta ga naruhodo waraeta. So it's like the guy was like, he was like shocked, right? Because it's like you see you crying face, because this guy, he's been crying, he been nose flooded with his tears. Obviously he's been crying a lot, right? But yeah, so like, you know how like when you cry like a lot and you look at yourself like after you cry and you don't even recognize who you is. I don't know about y'all, because you know how they're like pretty criers and there's like ugly cry. I'm not a pretty crier, I'm an ugly crier. I'd be like like I just, it's ugly. And when you know, like, because the salt stays in your eyes and then like your eyes get like puffed up, let me tell you, my eyes look like macaroons, okay? Like that's what it's called, macaroon, whatever. That's what my eyes look like, just puffy, puff, daddy puffy. So I just think it's so funny, right? Because then he's just like, he looks at himself in the mirror and he's like, but like, he's like surprised, he's shocked, but he's like, you're right, it's funny. So at the end, the laugh maker made him and that's it, that's the end of the song. And I just think it's honestly such a funny song. I honestly think it's hilarious, and this song is pretty easy to like understand because it's just like a story. It's not like this super deep, like you don't have to guess like, oh, who's like the lover or whatever and feelings. So like I just think it's a great song. And so yeah, I plan to do more kind of videos like this where I just introduce like, really I just want to introduce like different phrases and stuff that I think is cool. Hopefully I won't get into the story that much. I don't know if you guys want that. I guess let me know in the comment section. If you're like, no, just like tell us the Japanese, or just shut up, I don't know, just be kind. But yeah, so that's it. I love this song. I'll leave links down below so you guys can check out the resources that I used when looking up the information. And hopefully this video won't take me forever to upload. Thank you again for watching. I'm sorry for all the long talk that has nothing to do with anything. I hope you guys have a super great day, and I hope to see you guys next time. Goodbye! You're such a cutie. I love your booties. You're such a cutie. I love your booties.